I'm gonna go ahead and just keep it this way because I'm a ghost, apparently. But maybe I should, maybe not. No, I think it's because it's dark. It's like very, very dark outside. Whoa, dang! I can make this really, really bright. Crap. I don't know why I'm overexposed. It's probably from when I did my other video. Okay. Anyways, hello, you guys. I need to fix this. Oh my gosh. What am I doing? Um, why is my hat all jacked up? Why am I all jacked up? We're in a whole new era now. So, anyways, you guys, how are you going? Um, I wanted to talk today. Hello, John. I wanted to talk today about a lot of different things. Um, I think it is now. I think because thank you so much, Satellite Man. I think things are going to change here in some ways because I think a lot of last year I was still tenuous about like if I was right. After hitting 100 pounds, I'm like, I'm right, period. So I'm not going to play around anymore. I'm not going to be nice necessarily. Like I said, I already not really am, but I think at this point, I'm not even going to try to hold back. Like, if somebody says something really dumb in my comments, I'm just going to go off on them, period. There was a millennial pause. I am just so like over just blatant lies and like blatant inaccuracies, manipulation, control tactics. Like, I'm very over all these things. Um, I didn't expect it to hit me that way. I remember when I was losing a lot last year, I would see people who had lost and they're like kind of angry about it. And I am like feeling the same way. I didn't think I would because I was like, oh, I don't think that's good. But I think it has to do, in my opinion, it has to do with the actual size. Because I think when you're like super morbidly obese, you're just really sad all the time. I don't know how else to say it. Like, in terms of Swiftie coded things, when you're super morbidly obese, you're like forever in your anti-hero era. Like, everything is your fault. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. Like, you're always the problem. Everything is your fault. You view things in that way of like, oh gosh, I should be nice, or oh gosh, I should be this, or I should be that. Like, it's very anti-hero coded to be super morbidly obese. That's why I did my music video on it, by the way, because it was like the most hypo-licious song I ever heard in my life, which I do think that Taylor was very hypo, but through restrictive ED, the opposite, but it's super hypo coded. But now it's like the line between uh anti-hero smo to like mo or mid fat, that middling zone, especially as I'm like becoming less and less obese, it goes to like who's afraid? Who's afraid of little old me? So any of my Swifties, you'll know there's like a continuum, I guess. And it goes from one to the other. Slash, look what you made me do. And that's kind of how I feel. I didn't expect to feel like really angry and just like, fuck all these people who tried to act like I couldn't do it or this was impossible. I know, okay. But it's like, fuck all these people. Honestly, like, fuck them all, period. Um, I really don't have any other sentiment other than that. But it's like, seriously, I literally just don't have any I don't really have any grace for it anymore. Thank you so much, Peyton. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to see how far it goes. I have a feeling this summer I'm gonna be really mega bitch this summer. I can just feel it coming. I am still in a hormonal storm. I think when you're morbidly obese, it's still tricky. It's tricky at the solstice times in terms of hypo because, towards Christmas time, it's the shortest days of the year, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. And so your thyroid is slower during that time. And then towards peak summer, you have a lot of burn off. If you're in a deficit and you're losing weight, you have a lot of fat circulating and it's like really estrogen coated and very like bitchified in general. So I think that that's a part of it too. Like last year when I was still super morbidly obese and I was losing and in major burn off mode, I was so inundated with it that I became extremely depressed and like very scared. And I just don't feel that way this year. This year, I just feel like I'm ready to attack, honestly. Like, I know that people don't like to hear that, but I don't know. I'm just over it. It's like I went through a lot the last year, honestly. And to just obviously, I covered the rhetoric and stuff, and it is challenging sometimes to lose weight while you're covering the rhetoric because it's literally like you're watching people constantly say, "Oh my gosh, absolutely, Lisa." Absolutely excited. We're me and Lisa are so excited for Jupiter and Gemini, which Lisa is a Gemini, and it starts tonight. So this is my farewell to Jupiter and Taurus. We're done with the anti-hero. I'm apologizing for, or, trying to be nice, or I'm trying to be gentle or whatever. I'm over it. If you want gentle videos, watch my shit from last year. I'm done. I think for me too, at the end of the day, the content and where I'm at in my journey, it still has to be genuine. And I don't feel sad or like really sweet or anything. I feel really mad, angry at these people. Yeah, like period, like super angry. I think there's also aspects where I feel angry at some of the fitnessy types because fitnessy types are so like they have so much judgment on super morbidly obese people. And there's this narrative that it's so easy to lose weight and when you're super morbidly obese, and it is drastically harder. Like, and I think that's another aspect of my anger because I'm morbidly obese now and it is literally half as hard. Half. 50% as much effort. There's a thunderstorm, by the way. It's really setting the mood for this moment. We're really going into the villain era here. Yes, exactly, Homestead. Do you know how that affects Libra? I think it would be supportive, but Libra still has eclipses in their sign, so it's a tricky time. The two signs that are going to do the best with Jupiter and Gemini are Gemini is number one, and then Leo, which I'm a Leo. I was horrifically afflicted by Jupiter and Taurus, for the record. Very afflicted. Horrible. I had like zero confidence. So it'll be a welcome change for me. But a lot of people are going to be really mad. A lot of people are going to be very unhappy. If you like things really stable and really like not changing much, you're going to be kind of upset with Jupiter and Gemini because a lot of things are going to change. But as a part of that, I guess my rhetoric is going to change in the sense that I'm not going to pretend to be nice. Or it's not really that I was pretending to be nice. I was nice. I was empathetic. I was understanding where these people are. But at the same time, there's a flip side to that because as I get out, and as a lot of people get out, you realize, yes, these people are mentally ill. Yes, they're suffering. Yes, they're doing all these things, but what are they doing with it? They're lying. They're trying to convince you to be like them. They're cycle continuers, not cycle breakers. And I'm not going to sit here and coddle somebody who has no empathy for anyone else, who doesn't give a shit about anyone else, doesn't care if they're encouraging somebody towards death, doesn't care that they're locked in an ED and they're projecting it onto someone else and all this stuff. Like, it's time to kind of slam the door on these people. Like, I don't know how else to say it because I just don't have any more grace. I just don't. Um, and that could be seen as awful and mean or whatever. But like I said, it's just kind of where I'm at. It could change in the future. I could be okay again or nice again or whatever. But right now, I just don't feel it. I just don't. And so it's like, I'm not going to shelter somebody's feelings. I'm not going to. I don't have any more grace for these people. And I have been getting slightly more comments from FA types. And I just have zero grace, honestly. Zero patience, zero grace for any of it. I I want to make a video where we talk about shaming these people because they will use shame to try to control others, but they're very vulnerable to shame themselves. So I do want to at least maybe in streams talk about counter activist measures because I think a lot of people in anti-FA, they make the mistake of assuming that it's about an argument or assuming it's about logic with these people, and it isn't. It's purely based in emotion and it's based in shame and status consciousness. So when you look at fat activists, these people are almost always hyper focused on status. So you can use that against them. You can shame them and say, actually, you're the loser. You're a loser. I'm cool. You're not. And they have nothing to say because that's all they have. So you'll see like fat activists, they'll say like, well, I hope that you leave up like a splotch maker. I hope you leave up all your fat phobic stuff because in the future, when being fat is so accepted, we're going to use it to shame you. So she's already like getting a list to cancel people and to do this stuff. And look at what they did to Leo Skepi, which again, I don't even like him, but these people are not nice. They're totally willing to shame. I think we should shame them back. So I'm not for fat shaming, but I am for fat activist shaming, period. I think these people deserve to be ashamed. They deserve to be humiliated. They deserve to be demoralized. They deserve to be shown as immoral, horrifically evil types of people that they are. And they are. I don't know how else to say it. And like I said, there's no logic. They don't have anything. If you push back at all, they either don't say anything or they just immediately fold because there's no argument. There's no argument. They don't have an argument. Like this one chick, she was like, I actually agree with Aubrey Gordon. And I responded and I said, thank you for showing or like announcing your stupidity. That's what I said. And she's like, wow, an ad hominem right out the gate. Why didn't you ask me like why I could have that perspective? And I responded and I essentially said, you made a non-argument statement. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes, period. Then you're acting like it's like I said, like you made a non-argument, dumb statement, and now you're pretending to have an argument. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. I'm not going to entertain them. I think it gives them too much legitimacy. There isn't any. There's zero. And I think that that's kind of where I'm at. Like, these people don't have any legitimacy. Zero. Zero. And I need you guys to hear that. Like, nothing. Nada. Like, the only things that they have are certain things like with the medical industry, but even that, it isn't a fat issue. It's just an issue. So that's not even a fat issue. Almost everything they say is lies. Actually, probably everything they say is lies, other than if they say they hate their body. That I would believe. But anyways. Let's see. I'm here for the graceless summer. Yeah. FA types are commenting on your videos because they're angry you're successful. They must be. And it's just going to keep getting worse. That's all I can say. And like I said, I'm at a point where I'm like, I hope it hurts. I hope it stings. I hope you see it. And I hope it makes you really upset. I really do. And there are some personal, vendettas I have, which I know this is like really bad to say, but I'm just going to keep it a buck. I told you guys, and I shouldn't talk about it as much, but I hope my ex sees this shit, and I hope that he's so just like, I hope it just slaps him every time he looks at it, because he shouldn't be looking at my shit anymore. And I will say that. So like I said, it's not just, there's a lot going on here. It's political, it's personal, it's societal, it's everything. So it's like, no, I hope it stings. I really do. I really do. I hope when you see me continue to lose weight, continue to prove you wrong, I hope it hurts. I hope it hurts you. I really do. And by the same token, one weapon against them, I hope it gives other people hope. Because regardless of what this is, we have to shatter this stuff. It has to be shattered, destroyed, seen as a complete joke, seen as completely unserious, something that is just so incredibly ludicrous, which we already know it is. But for some reason in mainstream society, people are taking it seriously. And institutions are taking it seriously. The mainstream media is taking it seriously. Young kids are taking it seriously. This is a huge problem. And I'm at the point now in my activism where I'm like, okay, it's time to be a hammer. I can be a hammer looking for a nail. I'm serious. Like, it's time. So if they want to play, then we'll play. And they always get all butthurt and extra. And I've had a couple of them try to attack me, but I don't get hurt. I don't get hurt by their attacks. So they don't like it because I can attack back and they get hurt because they're weak. Everything with them is a paper dragon. You have to understand that. So don't ever let them guilt you. Don't ever let them don't ever let them think that you should be ashamed, because you shouldn't be. They should. They should be ashamed of what they're doing. It's not you. No. No, and I will still critique certain things in terms of weight loss, but I do my best. Like, I tell you guys, it is harder to lose weight as a super morbidly obese person. Like, that's something you guys need to know. So don't believe the rhetoric that a very, very big person can just breathe and they lose weight. That's not true. It's difficult. There's hormonal effects, there's side effects of weight loss. I was so glad to cover that this week on the channel because so many of you guys were like, yes, I feel this too. And I'm like, thank you. Because it's like when you're losing weight, it's really people don't talk about that stuff, about side effects or anything. But again, there's side effects of being obese. It's awful. So you have to choose your pain as a super morbidly obese person. Let's see. Life After Losing says, let's do it. Lisa says, I don't like being the bigger person, both figuratively and literally. Yeah, well, I think for me, I'm now the smaller person, literally. So I'm going to be the smaller person in general. I'm just kidding. That's so funny. It is weird, though, because I'm in Alabama. It is fat here. And so I'm not the fattest person most of the time anymore. And that is a weird thing because I used to be. I used to be the fattest one in the room all the time, and now I hardly ever am. That is a weird feeling. I don't know when that happened, but it did. The best revenge is always living well. Pretty much. Pretty much. I agree with that. You're cracking me up. Our gaslight era is over. Yes, it's done. The revenge body, but not really. Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily, it kind of is revenge body. It kind of turned into that. I didn't want to be that way. I didn't. But I feel like, as Taylor says, you caged me or whatever she said. You told me I was crazy. That's how I feel about my ex. So it became revenge body. He wanted an enemy, or not an enemy. Oh my God, I shouldn't say that. I need to chill. My Scorpio is really like right here. I am like, whoosh, I'm like right here. But it's like, you caged me. You did all this crap. You called me crazy. So it became revenge body. He manifested it. It became a thing. So I didn't want it to be that way. I really didn't. But this is how villains are created. No, I'm just kidding. I love how I don't know the lyrics that well. I feel like Lisa's gonna judge me because I don't know the bridge to that song that well. Because it's not my favorite song, but it's gonna have to become it. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna listen to it a lot, Lisa, I promise. Because this hat is now also, we got 2 more songs. I know you were. So I told you guys before, this is the Folklore Witch. We've got some tortured lesbian songs that apply to this hat too. So the 2 new songs that I can think of are Who's Afraid of Little and Me and The Albatross. Because I'm here to tempt you. I'm here to tempt you to lose weight. Those FAs warned you about me. To be scandalous. It's so scandalous to lose weight. Oh my gosh. I love how fat activists, they'll say like, oh, it's just so gauche to talk about a diet. Oh gosh, it's just so uncool. It's so uncool to talk about losing weight. To who? To you? To who? I wish I could have been in that room when I remember when I read that interview. That was sometime last year, and they were like, "It's just so uncool. Oh my gosh, no, no, no." And I'm like, "To who?" I wish I could be there and be like, "Who is it uncool to? Who? To you? To who?" I mean, it's like it's so easy, you guys. It's bad. Like, and I am like, I told you guys, like, I am not the nicest person in the world. Like, I'm really not. And I really love bursting bubbles. I do. It's bad. I know it's not a good quality of mine. I try to like mitigate it, but I think I can channel it into FA because it's like, I feel like so many people are just so nice and they're just so like, well, I don't want to get into that, or, oh, I don't want to step on your feelings, or, oh gosh, like, I don't know, I haven't really experienced that or something. And it's like, I get it. I understand, but I'm not that way. Like, I don't care. And I think too, like, I can't be that way. Like, I've been huge and I've almost died. It's like, I just can't, I just don't give a shit. It's like, I just don't care. And it's like so many things that they say, they act like we're supposed to just accept it. And we're supposed to be like, "Oh, of course. Oh my gosh, that's so true." It's not. It's not uncool to talk about a diet, for example. It isn't. It's like almost everything they say has zero foundation. So I just am inviting you guys to just question it. Even just asking a question. It's like, boom, they have nothing. Everything fat activists do is all about shaming, perception management. That's it. And then numbers. That's all they do. So it's only shame, perception management. So to try to act like they're cool, and then numbers. So spam, 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 spam. That's all it is. There's no argument. There's no basis in reality. There's nothing. So don't feel scared. Do not feel scared to challenge their bullshit. And you can always go back to calories. That is just a universal thing. And just be like, you're probably just eating too many calories. And I know, we all know. Ooh, that is just like, ooh, that perfect little needle into their water balloon is perfect. It is one of the best things to say. And I challenge you to just say it. You're probably just eating too many calories. You're probably just eating too many calories. You're probably just eating too many calories. And it's like, I know that that bothers them so much. And it's just delicious. I know it's bad, but it really just, my inner like Scorpio is like, oh, yes. Oh, I know that hurts. I know it does. I know it hurts. I know. I know it does in my soul. I know it does in my soul. I know it bothers them so much. You're probably just eating too many calories. Have you ever thought about doing a moderate deficit? That's the answer, you guys. As far as the weight, that's the answer. As far as like the thyroid stuff, I can kind of understand just because most mainstream dieting advice is anti-thyroid. Like avoid saturated fat, don't have meat, don't have, carbs or simple sugars, don't have fruit, for example. That's a major thing. Those are all terrible advice in terms of like hypothyroidism. You should have saturated fat. You should have fruit. You should have meat. You should have those things. Absolutely. And I understand that. But it's like at the same time, how many more fat activists do I have to see that are vegan before they question it a little bit? It's like maybe the diet isn't working for them, you know? It's like, and they're just like splotchmaker. She thinks she's so holy because she's vegan. And it's like, hun, everybody sees your health is falling apart. Everybody sees you can barely leave your room at this point. I mean, her anxiety is through the roof at all times. Who the hell wants to be like her? I don't want to be like her. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine being that miserable? That afraid to leave your house every day and that scared and all this crap. And she's so young. It's like, it's only going to get worse. Typically, it gets worse. You become more afraid as you get older. This should be like her bravest time of her life. She's in her early 20s. Couldn't be me. Hell no. Hell to the no on that. I'm not going to live like I'm, on hospice when I'm in my 30s. I'm not going to do it. I'm sorry. Like, it's ridiculous. Um, who is she? Why does her opinion matter to anyone? I love that. It used to be scandalous to gain weight. Now it's scandalous to lose weight. Right. That's the whole point. Like, they're not about getting rid of shame. They're not about that. They're just about switching it and weaponizing it in reverse. And we need to understand that. That's all it is. They want to be the ones to shame you. They want to weight loss shame. They want to shame you. It's not about getting rid of shaming. That's not what it's about. Period. Trying to totally shut down all conversation about caloric intake by saying it's uncool to discuss definitely deserves some bubble bursting. Yes. Not even extreme deficits start with cutting 50 calories. Yes. Here's my opinion. We need to normalize slow weight loss. In other words, you don't need to lose 10 pounds in a month. Yes, I completely agree, especially for a super morbidly obese person. It's usually a years-long process, in my opinion. I think for most people, not all, there are some that do lose it really fast. And maybe that's the 5%. That could be the case. But in terms of your average person who's super morbidly obese, expect it to take like 4 years. And if you think of it that way in your mind, it becomes a lot less overwhelming, for one. And for two, it just becomes like, I don't know, it just takes so much of the sharpness out of it. Look, Zen, veganism was horrible for me. It's horrible from a hypo perspective. I'm not going to lie about that because it doesn't help people. But if it's working for you, you must have a thyroid of steel and be proud of that. That's all I can say. I don't. I have a weak thyroid. It's terrible for thyroid health. It is a horrible diet. I will say that if you are hypo, please do not go vegan. Please do not. But like I said, if you got a thyroid of steel, go for it. I'm not going to shut you down, but I cannot encourage it. But it's nothing personal. Men are a lot more about numbers, and I think that's why we focus on calories in, calories out. It's factual. Take the emotion out of it. It's all about numbers. I think so. That's possibly part of it, but I do think there is, that feminine perspective of looking at hunger is important to consider, and looking at logistics and looking at it in terms of like actually getting through um getting through the weight loss, because it is emotional too, especially if you have an ED, then there is an emotional factor. So I do think the emotions matter, but it doesn't change the facts. Two things can be true at once. And also the subjective feeling of hunger needs to be addressed, especially on a physical level. So physical hunger, I would say that should be one of your first steps, is to determine emotional hunger from physical hunger if you had an ED. If you don't, then you can just immediately understand. And it's usually about hunger management because your system is fried and you're just like hungry, you know? And part of it is the super morbid obesity. It makes you hungrier. If you're super morbidly obese, you are hungrier. And that's why it's harder. It's not just like, yeah, if you cut calories, of course the weight will come off, but that happens at any weight. I think that's the other thing too, is we can oversimplify it, but again, we can certainly overcomplicate it. But again, when you're super morbidly obese, it is complicated to get out. Seasonal effects really affect you a lot. If you're super morbidly obese, any little thing that is off in your journey, it will throw you off track very quickly. It's like walking a tightrope. I've tried to explain it to people, but to get out of super morbid obesity, it's like you literally have to, it's like you have to develop this like metronome. It's like clock upon clock upon clock. Like it's difficult. It is not easy. And people are just like, it's so easy when you're that big. It really isn't. Because like I said, you can do everything right and you're likely still going to gain weight in the winter. And then it will come right back off in the spring and summer. Like it literally is like a metronome. And you have to like you go up and then you go back down and then you go lower and then you go up and then you go back down and then you're lower. It's like that. So that has to be understood from a super morbidly obese perspective. Now, once you get out of that, like I said, I will give you guys hope. It is so much easier. To me, this is so much easier where I'm at. It is like I said, it's half as hard. Half. The effort I have to put into losing weight is cut in half. Now, the only reason why this time is still challenging is because I have to catch up on like practical things, financial things, dealing with relationship issues, dealing with all these like emotional, practical matters that I couldn't because I had to put the weight loss last year at like the number one forefront of my mind because there is an aspect of getting out of super morbid obesity that does involve beating it down. Like you do have to like fight it like actively. It's not something that's like, I just breathe and it just happens. It's like, no, it's like I'm doing the deficit even if I feel like crap. I'm going to the gym even if I feel like crap. I'm going to do it no matter what, basically. And that's, you don't need to be like totally nuts. You don't want to injure yourself. That's not okay. And you do have to make decisions about like, okay, I can't go to the gym anymore right now because of this, this, and that. But as far as the emotional side, it really does require compartmentalization. You have to just like let go of the emotional side because you can't, like for me, when I was super morbidly obese, I couldn't even trust my emotions because it's like they're coming from my hormones. They're not rooted in reality. It's like I had to just keep going. You have to have that mindset of like compartmentalization. And that's what they don't want to. People want to be in their feelings all the time. And you can't. It's like that's later on, I guess. It's difficult. It is like a metronome. It's like a clock. It's difficult. But it's still possible. It is always possible. Slow weight loss is way safer, easier, more effective. But if you lose slowly, people will say you're not doing it correctly. That's true too. That's very true. And it's tough because a lot of super morbidly obese people, they have zero confidence about what they're doing and they have zero confidence about basically anything. And so if somebody comments something like that, they'll be like, oh, I guess I shouldn't be doing this. And it's like really easy for them to quit. Whereas I was just kind of like mega bitch mode. So I just did it anyways. So again, it requires a little bit of that. You really got to compartmentalize. You really got to compartmentalize. It's so important because you cannot let your emotions rule you when you're super morbidly obese. You will never get out. Like this idea that is so mainstream in society of like, we have to like fix our mental health before we can ever think of getting out of super morbid obesity. No, if that's a negatory, no way, not real. Like if you try to fix your emotions from a super morbidly obese perspective, you're likely going to just be lost in a catacomb of emotion forever. It's never going to end. You will never reach an answer. There will never be a moment of satisfaction. You will not get there. I can assure you. Like, even the difference in my mind from super morbid obese to just morbidly obese, like I said, it is so drastic. You wouldn't even believe it. Like, the amount of confidence I have now versus a year ago is like, I don't even know. It is crazy. The amount of like open-mindedness I have, or like freedom of movement, thinking, everything, it's crazy. It's so different. So I'm going to sit here and try to figure out my mental health when I'm locked in this super rigid, super morbidly obese like mind. There's just no way. There's no way. You will never find an answer. Like, you're not going to get out of depression. Obesity causes depression. It's like, you need to fix the issue. So that needs to change too, because that's a huge, huge, huge barrier, is people thinking, oh my gosh, I need to get my emotions in check. Bullshit. Bullshit. You got to just keep working on it. And again, in a lot of cases, you have to just not listen to it because it's hormonal. And I understand that because, again, I told you guys, my life was incredibly stable last year. It was so stable that I was dying of boredom. Like, it was so boring of a life, and I still had my emotions all over the place. It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how stable or unstable your life is. The emotions are still there because it has to do with the obesity. It has to do with the weight loss itself. It is what it is. So don't wait for things to be perfect. Don't wait. Just do your thing. It's probably going to take years anyways. You got to live your life anyways, because it takes time. It took time to get there. It takes time to get out. It does. Yeah, I agree, Zen Hands. We have such a toxic approach to food in our culture. I agree. I totally agree. 4 years, they could think of it like working towards a degree, slow and steady. If you have a setback here and there, you don't quit, keep going. Exactly. And the thing too is like, you recover the whole time. Like, I tried to explain that too a lot when I was going through it. But even when you're not losing in the winter, you still are healing. It's like you're always healing. Healing never stops. So if you're still losing and all this stuff, and then even if you plateau, your body is healing and like restoring itself at a smaller size and adjusting to being a smaller size. And that's such a major thing. So it's okay. It's okay. I didn't lose much from October until March or something. October till March or April. It's fine. Thank you so much, B. I want to lose 15 to 20 pounds. I want to go to the gym, but don't know where to start. If I want exercise to be a part of my everyday life, any advice? I would say, if you need to just lose 15 to 20 pounds, you could just honestly just go to the gym. The easiest thing to do is to start at machines. You can get a trainer if you can, and they can teach you a lot of stuff. But like, if I go to Planet Fitness, which I know I don't know, a lot of people talk crap about Planet Fitness, but it's worked for me. It's cheap enough for me. I can handle it. And so I just do the machines, and I just kind of start there as far as lifting and stuff. In terms of like, if you're just trying to burn it off, like doing cardio or whatever, then you just kind of do it, you know. But regardless, like when it comes to any type of weight loss, it does involve a deficit. So I would really suggest counting calories. It just makes it a lot less complicated, and just take it slow. 15 to 20 pounds isn't that much. So it will take probably a few months. But I know my friend Eric, he wants to get abs. So he's kind of at that, like, wanting to lose 20 pounds. And he he has a pretty moderate deficit, and he just goes to the gym a lot, because when you're at that low level of weight, you typically have to exercise a lot to get that 15 pounds. Like, exercise is a major part of that. So I would just exercise, factor in the exercise into your deficit and just go from there. And he's losing right now. He's losing about 1.5 pounds a week. And I think that's great. Something like that is realistic and it'll just kind of come off over time. I still think slow is good. Okay, I have my MyFitnessPal Premium, but I find myself obsessing. Okay, you don't need to obsess. Like, I think it's just something you kind of get used to. Like, I do a lot of counting, like right after or right before I eat. And for me, I just do it in my app. I scan it or whatever, and it's fine. If the deficit, like I know MyFitnessPal, they tend to have you try to lose 2 pounds a week. If that's too much, because it can be pretty low, especially if you don't have a lot of weight to lose, you can just go to like 1 pound, and that would be easier. And then just go to the gym more and that kind of thing. That's something I would think too, because if you're really, really, really obsessed, it might be a little too low, honestly, to sustain. So that's where I would be like, okay, I'm going to set it to lose 1 pound instead. Or, you have to find it or meet it where you're at. It could be 1.5 pounds, like whatever, even half a pound, whatever it is. You will get there if are just on track and doing it. But if it's too low, then it can become obsessive. Because if you're like hungry and stuff, then that would be, it's maybe a little too low or it's a little too harsh of an adjustment. But and you can always like start higher and then go lower over time too. Like you could start at half a pound and then go down to like 2 pounds if you wanted. So it just depends. Yeah, thank you guys so much for saying I like the video. I appreciate it. Learning that all my feelings weren't valid was such a watershed moment. Realizing that they bubble up like a sensation that I could decide to sit with instead of run from changed everything. Yes, that's so major. And especially in super morbid obesity, they can be very, very strong. Like there are some people who just aren't as emotional, which is totally valid and fine. But for people who are, it's very, very strong in super morbid obesity. And I don't think people realize it. And so I can say, like, being in morbid, they're so much weaker. It's such a weaker thing. Like, it's not the same. Why do people not like Planet Fitness? I've never been, but they look nice. I don't know. I think there's like a stigma. It's kind of like the McDonald's of gyms. I don't know how else to say it. It's not bougie, I guess, or it's not, you know what I mean? It's one of those types of things. So I feel like people just judge it a lot for that reason. Like somebody said, like the locker rooms aren't nice and there's no sauna. It's something like that. It's like for those types of reason. My advice be get in there and just start with dumbbells. That could work too. Find a dumbbell only routine and start to understand movements and build strength. That could work as well. So you can go about it however you want. I think I tend to look at things from super morbid perspective. And I think machines are really good for like very, very big people. But I do agree dumbbells are good too. If you're not as big, they're definitely great to start with. Like I probably will go to dumbbells eventually. So those are good as well. I agree with that. Um, yeah, recording in MyFitnessPal has really helped me. Yeah, it helps. It really does. It just gives like an objective number too. And so it's good to like just, I don't know, it helps, but I wouldn't obsess over it because it's not a big deal. It's it's not the counting, it's more so the having of a limit that is probably that bothers people, in my opinion. Because as long as it's not too unreasonable of a limit, you should be totally fine. You shouldn't be hungry. You should be okay in that sense, or just very, very barely hungry. But if it's like really, really low, like I know my mom, she's looking at counting calories. She's trying to do 2 pounds a week. Her deficit is like 1,200. That's brutal. And so I told her to just put it at 1 pound. And that's like 1,700. And I was like, you're probably going to be fine. I was like, just lose 1 pound every week for a year. You can totally do it. Go to the gym, get more calories from working out. And, in a year, you'll have lost 50 pounds. And for a woman, that's a lot, And I think people, they don't understand that, like, that's a lot. but it's just like a slow process because again, we're so used to that kind of ED mindset where it's pushed of going so fast. You don't have to go fast. All that matters is that you're going because as you slowly lose weight, it is easier for your body to handle things. And that's more on like a bigger size again. But yeah, if you're just trying to lose that 15 pounds, honestly, you're so welcome, B. Honestly, it takes a lot of exercise, in my opinion. It's like you kind of have to think of working it off because that's what my friend Eric is doing and it's working really well. So again, he's getting that 1.5 pound off each week so far. We'll see if he plateaus. Like I'm interested in his progress because I'm not at like a fit level, but he's losing from a fit place. And so it's a lot, but he does a lot of workouts. He works out a lot. So I do think when you're in that lower zone, it does take a lot of exercise. Just even just because you can't have like a mega deficit that's like super, super low. You can't really do that because you're going to be really, really hungry. It's like you have to still live. I set up daily average range personally for calories, say 23 to 24. While I was cutting fat, I lost more than 1% body fat or body weight in a week. For me, 2 pounds increased calories. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I do think for a lot of women, they're going to have to eat less than that to lose weight. But still, like I said, I think there's a big difference between 1,200 and 17. And that's what I told my mom to do because it's like, ugh, like 12 is pretty brutal. But 17, I'm like my mom would be fine with that, in my opinion. I don't think that that's bad. So it depends. But yeah. So I would consider slower as well. It does make it more sustainable. The whole point is just that you can do it, that you get there. You don't have to be there in like a minute. That's not realistic or necessary. My thoughts, outfits you like, music playlist that gives you energy, good headphones, do the things that will make you feel comfortable in a room with strangers. Just going as a routine is important. Yes, or you could be like me, be in my midnights era, go late at night. But now that I'm not smo, I don't care anymore. I go in the day now. I go when there's people around because it doesn't bother me anymore. It's like I'm not as unconfident. So again, it does get better with time too. Because when I was really smo, I didn't want anyone to see me. It was like really awkward to me. But now I don't care anymore, and I will just go in. So, because sometimes I don't want to be in my midnights era. I don't want to be up all night all the time. So I'm just like, no, forget it. Walking for is king for fat loss. If you need to steepen your deficit, every 2,000 steps is 100 calories, 10,000 a day. Yeah, I agree with that too. Having just an active walking lifestyle is so good for weight loss. It really, really, really helps so much. And yeah, I just think activity really helps. I mean, you don't need to go crazy with it, make sure you rest and all that, but I do think that exercise is really, really downplayed a lot in discussions about weight loss, and I don't think it's good because you have to remember from a metabolic perspective, it's better to eat more and move more. Like you want calories coming in and going out. Like you want it moving, 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 moving. You want everything moving. That's kind of that's pro thyroid, that's pro metabolic to have things coming in and going out. So being active is certainly better. Like eating more and being active is certainly better than eating less and not being active. Like you want movement. So yeah. Yes, and I agree, Lisa. The difference between 1,200 and 17 for a woman is literally an entire meal. I agree. That's why I just told her, I was like, just do that and go to the gym. And again, like you were saying, if you walk a lot, it can even make up that deficit. You can still lose fine. So you don't have to be like so much, or you don't have to do such a steep deficit because that is really normalized to go to like a very steep deficit. You don't have to. You can if you can sustain it and you want to. And as long as it's healthy, again, I don't support anything overly restrictive either. But if you want to and you can, then it's up to you, obviously. But if you can't, don't feel bad that you can't. It's like, no, there's a reason you can't, don't trip about it. I think that is a broader cultural issue. We want everything to be magically done. Nothing works like this. Exactly. And I think too, like, I just really try to push for super morbidly obese people. We did not get that size fast. Do not expect it to be gone fast. It takes years upon years upon years. Like, even in my worst throes of ED, I had 2 years that were the worst ever. The first one was 2010. That's when I really got into it very badly. And I gained 50 pounds. That's still 50 pounds in a year, a whole year. I gained 50 pounds. It was horrible. I felt horrible. I became super morbidly obese that year. Like, it was awful, but it was still 50. So think about it. It's like people don't gain 200 pounds in a year. And then the other time where it was really bad was in 2018, and I gained 30 pounds. And so it's like, that's not that much if you think about it from the gaining side. Like, we always hear about how easy it is to gain weight or how it doesn't take any effort. But think about that. Like, people expect you to lose 100 pounds in a year when even in the worst throes of my BED, I could only gain 50 or 30. So to me, it's like, it's very normal to lose 50 pounds in a year or even 30. In 2022, I lost 30 pounds. In 2023, I lost 50 pounds. Well, that's 80. Now I've lost another 20. So that's 100. And because it's so slow and because it's happened over years, my habits and everything I'm doing is incredibly stable. And I do agree, Lisa was saying it's also likely easier just because the habits are already there. And from the logistical standpoint and the practical standpoint, absolutely. Habits come in, it becomes very easy. But when I say it's easier, I'm talking more on like a hormonal level or an emotional level or a hunger level. It's easier. It's way easier now. But yes, obviously, practically, you get in a habit and it's really easy. It becomes like nothing. And that's kind of how I feel. Like, I barely have to put any mental effort into counting calories. It's like literally within 5 minutes in a day, I'm done. It's like I don't even think about it really. Congrats on the 100 pounds lost. I'm down 40 pounds and recovering from BED since January. I'm so happy for you. So, so happy. Just remember, don't focus on the body. Don't look in the mirror too much, like, just be cool. Keep it cool, calm, collected. Be grounded. I do love that saying of grounding. I think it really helps. It absolutely helps to just like, and kind of let it go. Cause I had moments where I would look at my body a lot last year, but some of it was like the serotonin, the estrogen, like, it just makes you really wild. Honestly, and I'm feeling it this year too. It's affecting me differently. It's like making me want to fight fat activists, basically, which is good. It's good for you guys. But in terms of like last year, it was like I get on the scale and weigh myself like 5 times. Like, I got into these really weird, like, ritualistic behaviors, but it was because of the weight loss. It wasn't an ED. So just be aware too, if you're losing weight and you're feeling kind of weird and you're like, oh, this is like, why am I acting weird? It could actually be the weight loss. It could be a side effect of it. So don't take it too personally. And my advice is to watch a horror movie. That's what I do. I watched one last night because I think I burn a lot of fat after I do my leg day and I get really weird. Like, I start thinking weird and I feel like weird. And so I just watch a horror movie and then I'm like, the whole time I'm watching it, but it's like I'm not thinking about my body or something or relationships or something. I mean, gosh, people will think about so many weird, people think about weird stuff if they don't acknowledge that those weight loss symptoms are real, because you can start to be like, I feel sad today. Why am I sad? And then you think about all the reasons you could be sad. And it's like, you don't want to do that. It's like, you're probably just a little sad because you're losing weight. Or it's like, I feel anxious. Why am I anxious? Let me think of a reason why I could be anxious. It's like, you don't want to get into those loops. So definitely, like, I know a lot of women like to watch like horror documentaries or like murder stuff on Netflix. Like, I think that kind of stuff helps. even looking at like negative media, there's so much negativity in the world. If you need to focus on something negative, my advice is to focus on something externally negative. Don't like overanalyze your body or like your relationship, like your boyfriend or something. Like you don't want to do that. Or like your family or your friends, or like you don't want to like, oh, this person doesn't get me and this person that. And like you don't want to be doing all that either. Trust me, I fell into those traps way too many times. Way too many times. I get 2,300 on activity level to lose half a pound and I'm whining. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, it's good. It's good to be active. I think it's great to be active. Oh, yeah. I'm a male bodybuilder. So 2,500 is light for me. Yeah. I'd suggest starting out, track your calories and weigh daily for a week, get an average calorie intake for a week and average weight gain loss and just adjust. Yeah. I agree with that completely. I, my friend Eric, he's doing 2,400 a day to lose. So, and I think he has like a refeed day at 3,000, but I try not to like talk about that to women because men can't eat more. That is a fact. So I feel bad. I feel bad if a girly pop is like, I need to eat 1,700. I'm like, I don't want to be like, yeah, well, my friend's eating 2,400 and, blah, blah. It's like, ooh, and he eats 3,000 on his refeed day. It's like, ooh, I don't want to be like that. But it is still a thing. So that is a thing. How to deal with initial hunger after starting deficit, need a pep talk. Honestly, make sure you're getting salt. I think for me, sometimes at night, I'll have some salt like with water, and that actually can help. I know that that's really random and weird, but that can help. Um, Other than that, just know that if you're really way too hungry, then you might need to like take steps down. Like, don't be afraid to take steps down. Like, that's what I did too. Um, so it's like, because you get used to it, like your body does get used to it. Absolutely. So, yeah. But I would say salt can help sometimes. If it's at night, then just try having some salt. Like I have like tahine. I know that's really weird, but tahine has helped me some nights. And I don't have like tons of it or anything, but it's like just to like scratch that itch, and that helps sometimes. Walking is amazing. People should never sleep on walking. Everyone can do it. It is free. Yeah. I mean, if you can walk, obviously, but yes, I totally agree with that in terms of like financial and all that. Yes. Water, beamers, and keep busy. Keeping busy. I don't know what that is. What is that, Satellite Man? I think it's also the kind of exercise too. Some people think it's necessary to do hardcore workouts right away, which is not great for someone. Yeah, I agree with that too, Zen. Absolutely. Again, like my friend Eric, he is doing hardcore workouts, but he's been in fitness for a long time. Like he's been at the gym for years. So you definitely have to meet yourself where you're at. And you need to just like take it slow, regardless of what you do. Slow and steady is better. Absolutely. Um, Absolutely better. Zen hands. People think you can outrun a bad diet, but exercise is a smaller portion of the whole. I mean, sure. I think so. I think the biggest thing with exercise is just that it allows you to eat more and still be in a deficit. And I think that that's major, especially if you're working with really, really small margins. It's major. So I highly suggest exercise, like especially for women who are trying to lose weight. I think it's really good. Again, you don't want to go too fast or too hard or whatever, but it's so much better to be able to eat a bit more. Health goals, weight goals help with the mental. Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's absolutely the perfect mindset. I love it. Um, the daily and multiple daily weigh-ins are so stressful. Hate that routine. Yeah. Well, for me, it was just like I was so like I don't know how else to say. I was so serotonin-y last year. Like it was such a thing in my brain. Like it was like there were certain things I would hyperfixate on. Like we had it like there's this famous thing in my family where outside there was a dead possum. I know that's nasty. but there was a dead possum, like a possum, I don't know what the hell happened to it, but it got hit in the head or something and it died right in our driveway. And it horrified me. Like, I was so serotonin-y, and when you're in that vibe, it's like disgust is really, really strong, and you just are really, like, neurotic. And this is because of the weight loss. And because I was super morbidly obese, it was just, like, really, really, really strong and, like, really, really, really loud. I don't know how else to explain it, but it was, like, really powerful. And, like, I remember, like, I kept thinking about that dead possum, and I was like, "I can't do it. I can't clean it up." I was like, "It's so disgusting," and it's like there were flies in it, like, in its mouth, and it's like you start thinking about it, and I was, like, hyper fixating on it, and I'm, like, laying in bed at night, like, my teeth are, like, gnashing at the thought of this possum. Like, the level of neuroticism that can come from the weight loss itself, that's what I'm talking about. So when you're like that, put on a horror movie. Put it onto something else, you know? I mean, it's okay for me to fixate on a possum, it's fine, like, it's not gonna harm my life or anything, but it was a lot. So I'm just saying, like, if you're feeling weird like that from a super morbidly obese perspective, it can happen, you know, in my opinion, especially from a BED past. So don't go wild, okay, is all I'm trying to say. Don't go wild. It's a lot, okay? It can be a lot, and it was very powerful. That was, like, towards the spring last year. I was like, oh my god, it's so nasty. It's so gross. It's so gross." Like, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was like I was, like, fixated on it. It was crazy. It was wild. But yeah. Anyways, nowadays, like, what I'll fixate on is I'll just be like, "I'm single. Oh my god. Am I gonna find somebody?" It's like that'll come in. So it's more like social things, or I'll just be like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm just alone." It's like that's the kind of things I'll think about now. So it's like it's definitely changed, and it's more like what in the past I would have considered normal, or like it's a lot more subtle. But I still nowadays it's like, yeah, but I went to the gym and I went to leg day, so I'm just a little moody tonight. And it's from the fat loss, so it's like it's easier for me to know. Because in the past, like, when I was younger, I would feel that way about dumb stuff or things that just, like, would come up while I was losing weight, and then I would start a fight. And it's like you start a fight, and then you create, like, a huge drama, and then that becomes, like, this toxic cycle that can just happen, and it happened a lot when I was young, and I don't do that anymore because, again, like, when you come to a point where you're fixating on a dead possum, you know that there's something physical happening. So it was undeniable last year. It was completely undeniable. I was like, wow, there is some effects here. Um, I work in the medical field and I see about 30 patients a day. My step count. Okay, good. That's great. You might be able to eat a little more then. So do be aware of that. If you have like a very low deficit, it might be too low. And that might be why you're obsessing. Okay. Oh yeah, but you don't want to binge. Yeah. Yeah, you don't wanna do that. So, don't eat for emotional reasons. It could also be exhaustion too, and I know that that's tough. It's very tough, like, especially if you have a really hard job. It's hard to not be exhausted, but I would just try to really, really make the most of your rest time and try to sleep as much as you can, and, that would help because that's tough. That's definitely tough, but you probably can eat more. Great hat. Why the hat? Um, just it's a shift. It's a shift in rhetoric. No more Mr. Nice, even though I wasn't even that nice, but no more even trying to be nice. I can maintain my weight at like 3,000 calories. I have guilt about it. Oh my God. You don't need to have guilt. The hat is the embodiment sass. Yes. I started counting calories this month and cleaned up my diet. And a couple weeks in, I felt weak and shaky. I definitely was eating enough. Did you have that when you stopped binging seed oils? It can happen, yeah. So it's definitely there. When you cut out seed oils, there can be a detox process. You okay, couple weeks in, yeah. So that typically, if you're not that big, I don't know how big you are. if you're not that big, then you kind of come down off the estrogen and stuff. And it doesn't take that long. I think typically like the worst would be like 3 months, but you'll know it's hormonal if you have diarrhea. I don't know how else to say it. I'm sorry. I have to just say it flat out. But if you end up having diarrhea, then that is like a detoxing thing from the seed oils. If it's not, then it could just be the deficit, and maybe you're just adjusting to the actual weight loss too. But yeah, it can be a little jarring. I don't know what your deficit is or how much, or how steep it is or any of those things, but it could be multiple things. But I did have detox processes when I stopped eating seed oils. I did. Because you just start getting rid of it. It's the liver gets to work and you start purging, basically like it comes out of you. I mean, I know that's nasty, but it does happen. So, and I think that happens in weight loss anyways, because your fat also has toxins in it too, because your body will it can store it in that. So it's a process. So just be wary to not go too fast. And then, if you're like really, really weak and shaky too, it could also be your electrolytes. So just make sure you're getting enough salt, make sure you're getting enough salt, potassium, magnesium, calcium. Those are major. So those 4 are like really important electrolytes in general. So if you're really weak and shaky, it could be an electrolyte issue too. So you have to like figure that out, and just try to figure out what it is. It could be a lot of different things, but there is probably an answer. Start with low intensity workouts and always stretch before and after a workout. I actually warmed up yesterday, which I know I should have always been warming up, but I did. And it did help. I just got on the treadmill. I did leg day and I got on the treadmill and it actually helped. So I'm like, I guess I should warm up. But I did. That was good for me, I guess. I lost 10 pounds since I started tracking 2 weeks ago. Okay. So that could be a lot of water for sure, it's still good. Your body doesn't want to hold tons of excess water either. So it's good to get rid of water as well. I'm so lonely. I'm so lonely. I have nobody for my own. Oh my gosh. What's funny is I used to hate that song. I used to hate that song so much. I really did. Oh my gosh. That's so funny. That is an old song. You just betrayed your age. So did I. We both just betrayed our age. I just busted my Gen Z conspiracy that I'm a Gen Zer because I recognize those lyrics. But yeah, that took me deep back into the 2000s. Did you say you live in Alabama? Yes, I do. I live in Alabama. I just started taking electrolytes and have been feeling so much better. Yeah. I mean, electrolytes are major. How old do I look? No, I'm just kidding. I'm 31. I'll just say it. I don't care. Could you imagine? I don't know how old I don't know how old you are, Cold Cat. I just know that you know that song. And that is an old song. That betrayed. That's all. I know that you're not like you can't be like 20. You're not. That's what I know. Otherwise, you wouldn't know that song. Really? You have to be elder then. I'd say you'd have to be at least like 27 or 26, something like that. Okay, yeah, it could be an electrolyte issue. It could. A lot of people are very like salt phobic too. Well, then you need to explain how you know that song. Otherwise, I don't believe you. Unless if you were singing that in diapers, then I don't believe you. It's old. It's really old. Yeah, you don't want to be salt phobic either. Like so, and salt is really genetic. It totally depends on you. Like it's very, very individual. So some people don't need much at all, and some people need a lot, and just like don't feel bad. It's totally genetic. The same thing with sleep. So some people need a lot more sleep. Some people need less. Like, I can't force myself to sleep all the time. Like, I just don't need that much. I need like 6 hours or something, and if I get less than that, then it's bad. Sometimes I will sleep more, but it's like if I'm really, really exhausted. Um, okay, it was a meme. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Could be a TikTok moment, I guess. I'm not on TikTok, but that's old. So it's old music on TikTok. Um, yeah, I eat a lot of salt too, but I think I just need a lot. I just do. I've always loved salt. So I think it just depends too. I think if you're a little bit, it's kind of a sign too of being a little bit adrenal if you need a lot of salt. So it's like, again, some of those things, it might change as you lose weight and all that. The Snails in Flushed Away sing that song, LOL, I'm 24. Oh my gosh, are you serious? That's how you know it then. That song really made the rounds. I, like, avoided that song. I avoided it. I hated it. I hated it at the time. I really hated it. Like, when I was young, when I was really young, I used to really get passionate about what I hated. Like, there were certain bands, like, I hated the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and they were, like, really popular. And, like, I was kinda, like, really dramatic, like, artsy. I still kinda am, but I was that type of person where I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't listen to this in the car." Like, "Oh, I need it to be turned off." Like, I remember this one song, like, I think it was, like, Snow or Heyo or something. I hated it so much, and I hated Danny California so much. Like, it's crazy when you remember. Like, I remember how much I hated it, and they were so popular, and I also hated Green Day too. I was one of those girly pops. I was. I was very, like, what's the word? Not counter, is it countercultural? Something contrarian. I was contrarian as a teen. I'm sure you're not surprised. Some things don't change that much. I was a contrarian girly pop. So, okay, well, period. Then you get it, Zen. You get it. You understand. I hated some of those bands. Like, they were really, really overrated. But I can't be a contrarian when I'm a Swiftie now. So I'm like, shh. Like, I was always on board with everything. Like, now I have to like switch it and be like, oh yeah, totally. I'm a mainstream girly pop. Like, I have to change the narrative. I really hated that Hey There Delilah song. I don't hate it actually, but I understand hating it. I do. Cuz it was really overplayed. It was played a lot. It was kind of like if you didn't like it, you would have hated it. And then I reminds me of like that Gives You Hell song too. That song was so like extra. It was so extra. And they played it a lot. And they played it like I remember like I used to watch ABC Family. Oh gosh, I'm having like weird flashbacks now. I used to watch ABC Family and they'd have all these weird like frat shows and everything was like college. And they'd play like Gives You Hell and like Hey There Delilah, like all those kinds of like songs. And it was just, I don't know, just thinking about that genre like took me back to ABC Family. And I was like, whoa, whoa, that's old. That was a long time ago. I remember when American Idiot came out, a lot of Green Day fans were annoyed that so many new people started liking them. Oh my gosh. I was so like, I hated Green Day. I was such an anti. And they were so popular, like so popular. And I was just like, it's like he's so like I felt like they were really pretentious. I still kind of do, to be honest. But at the time, I was just like, because I was that way. But then I was like a super nerd because I loved like Twilight and Paramore and like I was just really girly pop, and those are like not cool either. So I used to get in fights in forums where people hated us that were Paramore fans and they call us para whores. They'd be like, "Oh my gosh, another para whore. Oh my gosh." And like we would fight, like, because all the scene bands, there was like toxic fandom fighting online. And I remember I was like, I am a para whore and I'm proud. And I started that on Paramore Nation. I feel like I started it. And then all the Paramore fans started saying that they were para whores. And then Haley, the lead singer, she's kind of gay. I'm just gonna say it. She's gay. And she was just like she didn't like it. She didn't like us being called para whores. So she was like, no, she's like, we're a para family. And I was like, no. I was like, ew, Haley, that is gay. I'm sorry. Like, no, para whore forever. Like, but yeah. So I'm just saying, I used to fight online. I know you guys aren't shocked, but I did. And I would go to bat for Paramore. I would, because it wasn't cool. So it's weird. It's weird to be a Swiftie and it's like cool because everything I liked when I was young, it wasn't cool. So I'm like, ooh, but I don't care if people don't like Taylor. I could just like whatever. I'm not one of those, and I'm not, a teenager anymore. So I'm not gonna like fight about it on a forum. But yeah, that's what I was doing in high school. Look at these snips. These are for yarn. I don't know why I have them, but anyways, you guys. Kid me listening to You Are My Sweetest Love at 10 at night. I don't even know. That one I don't know. But around how old are you, Cool Cat? I'm curious now. Now I'm curious. Since you're a Gen Z, are you like 20? Was I completely wrong? Oh my gosh. Anyways, you guys. I saw this one meme today and it was like this post where it was like millennials and Gen Zs fighting. Okay, early 20s. Millennials and Gen Zs were fighting. And I was just like, this is so extra to me. Like, I can get it. Like, for me, I kind of like generational wars because that's just like interesting to me. But this one Gen Z was like so off. They were like, well, Gen X didn't hate on millennials as much as Gen Z is hated on by millennials. And I was like, that is not true. I'm like, you don't remember shit. And that person was like, I'm on the cusp. I'm 27. And Gen X wasn't like that with millennials. I'm like, hun, you lost your mind. Like Gen X was brutal to millennials. We were seen as the scourge of earth. Boomers hated us. Like, we still are seen as the scourge of the earth. It just like continued. And now Gen Z sees us as the scourge of the earth. So it just never it's not normal that millennials are so hated on by Gen Z. That's not normal. Typically, older generations would hate the younger one. So it's normal for millennials to hate Gen Z. It's not normal for Gen Z to hate millennials. That's weird. So millennials just get it all the time, basically, and never had a break. And for me, like, I'm the type of millennial where I'm just like, I don't care to please Gen Z. Like, if they like me, they like me. If they don't, they don't. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to listen to them. And that's basically it. But I think a lot of millennials are like really people pleaser and they like try. And I'm like, why? It's weird. Yeah, Gen Xers told me not to bother chasing my dreams. Yeah. I mean, it was brutal. Like, it was brutal. I'm just saying. I listened to music from the 70s when I was a teenager. I'm a millennial. Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of people like that too that I remember. I still liked, I was just like emo kind of. Like, I liked like Evanescence, Breaking Benjamin, 3 Days Grace, Paramore. Like, I liked those kinds of music. It was kind of like rocky, but also like a little bit girly or like very emotional. Like post grunge types of music. That's what I liked in high school. That was my jam. And I thought I was so edgy listening to Chevelle or whatever, like The Red. I thought I was so edgy in high school. Um I think they're funny, but I don't know enough Gen Z in real life to truly beef. I don't beef with Gen Z. I don't really hate any generation typically, but I will criticize any and all because I feel like it, but I will totally hate on millennials too, like where it's valid. Um, because like to me, the biggest thing with millennials that I don't like is that they act like they're the most traumatized generation that ever existed. And it's like, it's not true. Like, it's true only in a financial sense. Like, I do think as millennials, we are at least in modern times, we are the most financially devastated generation. And that does have a lot of, like it has a lot of impacts on the rest of your personality because it's a very important thing in life, but, like, Gen X was hella traumatized, you guys. Gen Z has a lot of stuff going on, it's like boomers were traumatized, like, everybody else was traumatized, so I it does bother me when millennials are just like, you know? It's like everybody was. But yeah, financially, absolutely. Yeah, like, between 2008 and COVID, those 2 financial devastations are really awful and very horrific and hit us very, very hard at very, very difficult times of our lives for it to hit. And so that is very real. That's very true. And so that is valid in my opinion. And then the only thing that I think Gen Zs don't get is like Gen Z is used to like constant crisis or constant things going wrong, or there's this bad thing that happened here and then there's that bad thing. Like millennials didn't have that. So it's like when 9/11 happened, it was like very emotionally devastating. I don't know how to describe it because it was very shocking and it was like one thing in a relatively peaceful existence. I mean, there was still stuff going on at the time, but the internet wasn't as big, so it's not like it was always in your face, especially not as a kid. And so, like, certain things, like, I remember Columbine too, that was, like, a huge devastating thing. So it's like, for millennials, sometimes when you have a relatively stable society growing up, those isolated events have a huge emotional impact. So I think for millennials, we have a lot of like tendencies to ruminate because it's like for us, it's like a really bad thing happened and then it's peaceful after that. So then you just think about that bad thing a lot. Whereas I think with Gen Z, it's just like bad thing, bad thing, bad thing, bad thing. It's like there's so many things that it's like you don't really think about anything that deeply because it's like there's always the next thing. There's always the next thing. There's always the next thing. So it's totally different on an emotional level. And that's probably why the generations are fighting because it's totally different responses. Like I think Gen Z is probably more prone to distraction and to like numbing, like not thinking about things, whereas millennials like the complete opposite. It's like rumination. So it's really interesting. But that's what I was thinking about today because I was seeing that people fight and I was just like, ooh, because I'm always around for tea. But yeah. Gen Z has to be overstimulated with constant access to the internet and social media. Yeah, I think so. I think it's just like it's numbing too. Like you're not gonna be um you get numb after time. It's like you're not gonna view everything so seriously because there's always something else happening. It's like bad thing happens, oh, another bad thing happens, oh, another one, another one, another one. It's because of the media cycle too, so it's a lot. Yeah, you can't care about everything, exactly. Whereas, like, for us as millennials, there were like 9/11, we all could care about that at the same time, and it was like a collective moment, and it's like, you don't have that anymore because it's like, you can't yeah, I agree with that, Zen Hands. We have memories of good times, whereas Gen Z has grown up constantly subject to shit. Yeah, when I think there's just so much like negativity too. And again, like we're gonna have completely different emotional reactions as generations because like millennials, we were pumped up constantly as children. We were like the generation that's gonna save the world, like all the future, the hope is all in us, and we're gonna do amazing things, and we're the future, and we're this and we're that, and we're amazing, right? And so we were really, really built up when we were growing up, and then 2008 happened, and it just like all fell apart. And so then it's like, F you millennials, you guys suck. Like the system's broken, but we don't care. You're a failure. So it was like a huge buildup and then a massive like letdown. And like you could never live up to those expectations. Gen Z is the complete opposite. So Gen Z is like, they're lame, they're never gonna do anything, they suck, they got no hope for anything in life. It's the complete opposite. It's literally like zero or low expectations, absolutely no expectations. Like pretty much it seems like the narrative around Gen Z is that they're just all losers and they're never going to amount to anything. And it's like, that's really negative, and the world is going to end, by the way. It's like the world is over and you're never going to have anything and just deal with it. And it's like, ugh. And that's kind of that toxic, in my opinion, that's toxic Gen X rhetoric because, you know, millennials dealt more with like boomer stuff because that's when they were really ruling society, was when we were growing up. And Gen Z is dealing with toxic Gen X negativity of like, you'll have nothing in your life and you just got to deal with it. And it's like, oh, I don't really think that's good either. But it creates a completely different uh, vibe. And it's a totally different emotional landscape. So it's really interesting. It's weird because Gen Z and millennials are really, really similar, but emotionally completely different. And that's really weird. So it's really interesting. But I have no beef with Gen Z. I don't. Certain Gen Zs I don't like. I don't like toxic Gen Z, but I don't like toxic anybody. Yes, I do remember that, B. I was a little young for 2000, but I do remember people getting scared, kind of. And then 2012, I certainly remember. That one I remember a lot. um, I do remember that. That was funny. Yeah. I was really young with Y2K. I was very, very young, but I do remember it. And I remember at the time I was like, I don't think anything's going to happen. That was like the feeling I had. Because I remember like I got picked up from school like the last day before the end of the year in 99. And I was like, I don't think anything's going to happen. That was like the feeling I had. And nothing did. Pretty much. There was just a lot of bad style and horrific fashion in 2000, which was scarring in and of itself. And my mom was like huge into the Backstreet Boys. So it was like the Millennium album and it was all white and it was just so cheesy to think back. But that's a whole other issue. But yeah, I mean, things were pretty, I would say like my experience is things were really good until 9/11. And then it just like slowly got worse. It was just like worse, 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 worse. And then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse all the way to 2020. And it's like, oh my God, it is so bad now. Holy crap. But I don't know if that's just getting older or if it's that things have been falling apart. Like it's hard to tell because it's like you don't know what's just your perception and what's real. But yeah, it's interesting. But I do think, you know, I support Gen Z. I do, like in general. I support all of us basically. I'm not a hater, but it is funny to think about the differences sometimes because I feel like so many millennials, they expect Gen Z to be like so emotional and so like we were when we were young. And it's like, they're not. They're not emotional like that. Like, nothing worse than a false empathy millennial. It's one of the worst types of people in the world. One of the worst types of people. Can't stand it. It's like, hey, millennial, put yourself in their perspective. Would you be emotional? Probably not. Why would you be? You know? It was worldwide. I'm from the Dominican Republic and I was still living there in the early 2000s. I went to Catholic school and everyone was freaking out and praying. Yeah. Yeah. That's so funny. Oh my gosh. That is so crazy to me. But I don't know. I mean, I was really little when we were going into 2000, I was really little. So I didn't remember like everything around it. I just remember like people talking about it. I'm late stage Gen X, so I relate to millennials a lot more than older Gen X. Everything went to shit after 9/11. Yeah. I really think so. It was a very different world. And that sucks, honestly, to say. And I didn't have much time before that. That was like my childhood or when I was really little. But it was different. The only thing is that there were all these like emotional and family problems and things like that. Like, there was still a lot of that because there was a lot of drugs and stuff in the 90s, and that was, like, destroying families. So, there's never, like, a perfect time, but I think that just continued on, it's like we just added on, like, all the other shit basically to that. So, hopefully we'll get it together. I'm trying to be, like, uplifting here, but anyways, you guys, I think I'm gonna get going. I think things are gonna get better. I do. I personally believe 2020 is a low point. And I think we're gonna slowly claw our ways out, and it's gonna be okay. Hopefully, millennials will get shit together and do something. Um, I'm gonna do my best. I'm trying on my part. I'm doing my part on the fat issue. Yes, I agree with that. Life after losing. I liked the late 90s. I remember it. Like, I do remember it, and it was really it was kinda gay, honestly. Like, everything was really cheesy and, like, really emotional. I remember all the music, it was, like, really emotional, and then everything was, like I remember that one song where it's, like, "Upside down, feeling" like, it was just really cheesy, like, everything was really cheesed out in the late 90s. Like, the early 90s, which I wasn't really I was being born, it was all, like, grunge and, like, "Oh, we're really sad," or whatever. It was, like, different. But anyways, you guys, um, yeah, I agree with that, B. I agree. I think I was around the same age. I think I was 9 when it happened, and it was different. But anyways, you guys, thank you so much. I will be back later. Have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. I love my cheesy little outro, but I'll be back next week. Thank you guys for a great stream. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.